These are all like obvious moves. To an extent, I wouldn't even need to necessarily like listen. I know what I want to achieve. Thin them out a bit, push them back a bit, cut some mids, cut some of that upper mid range where they're battling the vocal for space. Obviously, I need to hear that to know how much to cut, but they're just moves that I know I want to make.
All right, walking to the studio, digging into part 2 today. So last time, quick recap, we did a bit of prep, volume balance, played around with samples a little bit. So now today we're gonna dig into EQ, some frequency balance stuff, mostly kind of problem solving, cleaning everything up. Maybe we'll get into a little bit of sweetening. And then from there on, tomorrow, or next time, we'll do compression and finishing touches, etc. So hopefully you're finding it helpful so far. Again, if you've never seen a full mix like this, just seeing the whole process, it's just different every time. You're gonna pick up something new every time. So hope you're enjoying it. See you when we get there.
Right, quick listen. Okay, so we made good progress. It's a cool track, and there's still some balance issues that I'm hearing. We'll kind of get that as we go. But at this point, we can also just quickly tune our ears, listen to a reference, so we can refresh our palette. So we're missing some width, we're missing some depth, we're missing that kind of 3-dimensional sound. It's very busy in the mid-range, so we've definitely got lots of cleaning up to do. It's sounding a little bit lopsided as well. And this is where we can start creating some subgroups if we want to process things. So these two guitars, for example, let's put them in their own little summing stack. Guitar high. And so far, all we've done is the volume balance. That's all you're hearing if you didn't watch the previous video. And then a little bit of organizing. But this is the part that a lot of people start at, is they get straight into the plugins. They get straight into the EQ, the compression. But we spent basically an hour just getting the balance right and tidying everything up and making sure our foundation is good, and that's really important. And that means now when we get into EQ and stuff, we can have fun with it. It's already sounding good. We know we're not solving problems with EQ and compression when we could just be turning things up and down. And we'll continue to think through that process. Hey, here's a problem. Do we need to solve this with EQ, or could we actually just turn up or down a fader? But at this point, I'm just thinking, what are the main problems that I want to fix in the mix tonally now? That's the next phase that we're going into. And we're going to loop the loudest section of the song, which we're basically at here. But let's just grab. So the first thing that's grabbing my attention is just the guitars. We really need to get that guitar tone right, because that's where a lot of that mid-range busyness is coming from. So let's start by just soloing the guitars and the vocals. Per cue. And this is where I'm hearing it a lot. Maybe even a bit higher. I was hearing it around 2K, but actually up here at like 4K. So listening for where it combats the vocal the most. So that's clearing up some of the space.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you.
Something else we can do to add a bit more width is put some EQ on the left and right that's slightly different. So if we just listen to this left, here we've got a lot of body there. We could try cutting that on the left, and then if we copy that to the right and boost it instead. So on the right, and then if we compare, so this is with the EQ separately on the left and right, and then without. Which creates more definition between the two and gives us a little bit more stereo spread, but it's also, in a sense, cleaning up some of that mud. And what we could experiment with is, instead of boosting there on the other guitar, we could try boosting maybe around 1K. A bit more bite. Let's try it in the context of the mix.
Sending your friends to see you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you.
We've just got so much going on in that mid-range that I think instead what I'm going to try is just cutting it at a different place. So on the left, we're cutting it at 287. On the right, we're cutting it at 461. Probably go a little bit broader. So let's compare. This is without, with. Okay.
Sending your friends to see you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects you? Saying the words from them, nobody can defend you.
Let's move on now to these low guitars. So this is where you kind of have to make tricky decisions, because we're trying to free up some space in the mix for that mid-range. Basically just give everything more separation, give it a bit more of that scooped sound. That's what's going to help this sound bigger and brighter at the same time. But these guitars, basically all we've got is low and mid-range. And there's definitely a lot going on around this kind of 1K area. So I think we can start to cut out stuff that we don't really need. And if anything, boost them where we do want them. This is kind of, in my head, I'm mentally thinking, as if there's any other way. I'm thinking, where is each thing sitting in the mix? And each area of the frequency spectrum, all the way from kind of down here to up here, I'm thinking, okay, what's sitting in each area? What's taking up the most space in each of these kind of zones? What's really prominent in like sub 100 hertz? What's really prominent around 100? What about low mids? 1K, 2K? And starting to just kind of allocate, okay, well, if this guitar is sitting quite prominently around 1K, then I don't want many other things fighting it for that space. So that's where we could start to think, well, the other guitar, we could probably cut at 1K a little bit as well then. But then where is that like sitting? What is this other high guitar actually adding? And it is in this kind of like 2K range. It's really adding a lot, but we did cut that to make room for the vocals. So now it's got kind of like a brighter, kind of fizzy. And that works. So with this guitar, we can be thinking, okay, this is sitting around 1K. It's giving us a lot of that kind of forwardness. And we could probably cut it where the other guitars are as well, right? Like around 2K.
Sending your friends to see you, praying that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects
Might be losing a bit too much there.
the girls who hate you? Saying we'll crush when you fail. Nobody can defend you for everything you did.
But it's definitely creating some space in the mix. If we just bypass everything we just did.
Sending your friends to see you, praying that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects you?
We're losing a little bit of warmth, and we want to be careful we don't lose too much of that. But we're also creating a lot of space in the mix.
Sending your friends to see you, praying that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you, saying we'll crush when you fail. Nobody can.
And this is where we can also start to think about how compression might shape the tone, but we're going to save that for another video. For now, I just want to start solving problems, especially as it relates to kind of frequencies. Get the rough frequency balance. We've got the volume balance, we get the frequency balance, and then we can move on to dynamics. So let's move on to something else. Let's kind of take a step back, maybe go to a different section of the song and move on to potentially the kick and the snare.
I am innocent. Sending your friends to see you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you.
And this is where we can start to, I think, play around with the vocal a little bit. Get that sitting really nicely, and then everything else we can shape around it. So let's start with some kind of mid-range stuff, and then we'll try boosting the top end to give it that sheen.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you.
So what we can do here, because we've got this double, I'm actually going to bust these as well, so that we're not EQing them, doubling up on our plugins. Again, we could do something where we give them slightly different EQ on the left and right to add some more width, but just to get the main tone dialed in, let's just bust them.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that.
We can call this vocal sub or lead vocal sub, so it doesn't confuse us with lead vocals group.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll.
Let's just try listening to this in solo for a second. I just want to get the tone.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll.
Sounds pretty
defend
good. We don't have a
you.
ton of
But who
essing.
protects me? Blaming the
Sibilance.
girls who hate you, saying we'll crush what
Essing. Has anyone ever called it essing before? De-essing. Makes sense to call it essing, but that's definitely not how most people describe it. Sibilance. We don't have a ton of sibilance. It's not super muddy.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you.
Sounds pretty good. I think we could do with a little bit more top end. Let's actually just start there instead of just doing stuff for the sake of it. Let's bring in some top end.
Sending your friends. Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend.
Great plugin. Love this plugin. It's doing it's a parallel equalizer. So it's doing it in parallel. Under the hood, it's just boosting the top end. I think there's some saturation going on under the hood as well. And then it's blending it back in. So it means you can be quite aggressive without worrying as much about, getting too crazy with it.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you, saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can. Sending your friends to save you.
Now we're getting some sibilance.
Begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you, saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend.
And I feel like I also want to add some more body. So let's start by just grabbing that sibilance, or that essing, as we could potentially call it. I'm going to coin that phrase. Grab that essing. Grab those S's. That works. De-esser. Here we go. And then there's a great little preset here called vocal hard or vocal soft. Let's try vocal hard.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. Sending your friends to save you.
So I'm going to tune this until we're just getting the S's and not everything.
Sending your friends to save you.
So you can see I've raised that threshold. So now,
Sending your friends to save you.
and the thick red line is where it's dropping. It's reducing the gain. So
Sending your friends to save you.
So we're getting those S's, and then we can change the range to dictate how much we're compressing them.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you.
Without,
Sending your friends to save you.
with.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girl.
That'll do. So now body. There's a couple of ways we could do this. And this is where we can start to think about tone not just being EQ, but also being saturation. And to an extent, compression as well. When we start bringing in compressors, especially if we're using analog compressors, it's going to be shaping tone too. So, there's lots of overlap between all these different phases, or, we're thinking about EQ, but compression can also change tone, and you might be applying a compressor to control the dynamics, but now it shifts the tone, you're thinking about EQ again. So obviously there's a lot of overlap, and as much as we're trying to be kind of systematic here, we can start to play around with some saturation at least to give this a bit more warmth. And we could try something like FabFilter Saturn, because then we could try saturating those lows. I mean, we could saturate the whole thing. Let's try that first with like a warmer, so like warm tape, warm tube, something like that.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend.
And I'm not going to use these settings. Generally, what I'll do is use really aggressive settings to dial it in, and then pull it back. And that works for anything. If you're trying to dial in a compressor and you can't hear what's happening, just go crazy with the threshold, so you're getting loads of compression. Tweak it till you find a sound that you like, and then tone it down again.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you.
That sounds kind of cool, just as an effect.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you, saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you for everything you did.
So let's try warming it up a bit. What we can do here is we can create a crossover in Saturn. This is multi-band saturation, so anything under, let's say, 200 hertz, we can actually,
Sending your friends to save you.
probably a bit too low, we can increase the dynamics knob here, and what that's going to do is effectively compress those low end signals so they're more constant.
Sending your friends to
And we're getting now some like
Sending your
You hear that like mic rumble.
sending your friends.
So we might want to just clean that up quickly. Put ProQ at the start.
Sending your friends. Sending your friends. Sending your friends to save you.
You can see we're not, the fundamental here is at like 300 hertz.
Sending your friends to save you. Sending your friends to save you.
Let's try just like a low shelf.
Sending your friends. Sending your friends to save. Sending your friends. Sending your friends to sending your friends.
Let's see if that's affecting the tone.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they.
Yeah, we're losing a lot of warmth there. So let's go back to this.
Sending your friends, sending your friends, sending your friends, sending your friends, sending your friends to save you.
So we shouldn't be losing too much going off at 60 here.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Them and the girls.
Oh, weird.
Sending
Okay, so that's probably to do with this.
sending your friends to save. Sending your friends to save.
Right, okay, so what's happening there is we're like compressing it really aggressively, so it's bringing up that low level information. So that doesn't seem to be working.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Them and the girls who hate you, saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you for everything you did, for everything you did.
Interesting. I've never played around with that before. That's pretty cool. So
Sending your friends, sending your friends.
I'm trying to dial in like a warm, saturated sound to then blend in underneath. So now let's just try it. It's not perfect, but now if we reduce this mix control.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend
That's making a big
you.
difference. Let's try in the context of the mix.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Maybe the girls who hate you.
If anything, a bit too much. Now it sounds a bit kind of muddy.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Maybe the girls who hate you, saying we'll crush when you fail. Nobody can defend you. Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you.
So experimenting with the order here. Putting it after the de-esser, before the de-esser, before the clariphonic. It's like, do we want to saturate before we boost the top end? That could sound more aggressive because we're creating new harmonics and then boosting them. Or do we want to boost that top end DS and then saturate like that kind of brighter but also DS sound? I think it sounded better with it after. It's just something you have to play around with sometimes.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Maybe the girls who hate you, saying we'll crush when you fail. Nobody can defend you.
So yeah, I like what that's doing.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you.
I think we need like a mid-range cut somewhere. It still sounds a little bit muddy, a little bit masked.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you.
And I don't want to cut down here.
Sending your friends,
We're going to lose too much body.
sending your friends to save you.
But this kind of area here, this like 500, 600,
Sending your friends to save you.
still like a lot, that kind of muddiness to it.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you.
But we're not losing body, so I like that.
Sending your friends to save you, begging that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects
okay, so we're getting somewhere.
Sending your friends to see.
This is without anything.
Sending your friends to see you. Maybe they'll protect you.
It's louder, so it sounds like we need to boost a little bit of gain. So it's definitely more forward in the mix, but taking up quite a lot of space.
Sending your friends to see you. Sending your friends to see you. Maybe they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you.
So we might have lost a little bit of that body.
Sending your friends to see you. Maybe they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you. Sending your friends to see you. Maybe they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Maybe the girls who hate you. Saying we'll push when you fail. Nobody can defend you. For everything you did.
A little bit more de-essing.
Sending your friends to see you. Maybe they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me?
And actually the volume sounds about the same.
Sending your friends to see you. Maybe they'll protect you.
I'm happy enough with that to move on. So now the thing that's grabbing my attention quite a lot is the drums, because I think the drums need a lot of work. So let's start with the kick and the snare. And again, we can just group these so that we can do them together. Kick, sub, and we could always call it sub group. So not to be confused with sub bass or like a kick sub. That could be like a, you know, like a sine wave or something under the bass. Snare, sub group. So we did have these samples we could use. But I want to try just EQing this, get it to a place where it sounds good. So let's go for like classic. The samples that I use a lot and the samples that I think just sound really good and become a reference point for me are the CLA ones. So if we want to recreate those, it's, you know, Chris Lord Algae, it's going to be like an SSL, probably an 1176, maybe also the compressor on the SSL channel. So let's try 4KB just because I'm a little bit more familiar with it. In fact, we could do the 4KE because just to have a little play around with it. And typical things to do on a kick is we're just going to have to be like really aggressive. So I'm going to lean over here a bit. I think you can see this, and use my controller up here. It's really that simple. There's nothing complicated about it. It's just like smiley face to the max. It's like boost the crap out of the lows, boost the crap out of the top end. That's really it. And then if we wanted to start compressing this a little bit here, I'm just going to show you this. We'll come back and we'll fine tune this a lot more when we come back to compression dynamics in the next part. But just to show you how it is going to sound, I could just, and while we're here in this plugin anyway, so it's so fast that the release isn't really doing anything. If you listen, fast release, slow release, not really making much difference. Fast attack is too fast. Or we're getting this like, it's just way more compressed. So to AB, fast versus slow attack, we kind of have to play around with everything else as well. Not making much difference though. I mean, a kick transient, I think from memory, regular attack on this is like between like 10 and 30 milliseconds. For 4KE, it might be different. Fast attack, let's have a look. It's good to know these things. So fast attack is 3 milliseconds. When off, the regular attack time is 30. And both of those are going to be slower than the kick transient anyway. If you think about an 1176, which is commonly used on drums because it has a fast attack, we're talking like 30 microseconds, not milliseconds. The fastest this goes is 3 milliseconds, and 1176 is 100 times faster than that. Just something to bear in mind, and a really good thing to know when you're thinking about transients and attack times and release times. It's not going to make that much difference on here. So mostly what we're hearing here is just more dynamic control. Every hit is now going to be more equal. But again, we'll dig into that a lot more. For now, just wanted to see how it sounds. So this is with nothing. And this is with, and let's volume match that. So we've still got a little bit more, still got a bit of that kind of basketball. So I think we can cut a little bit more at 200 hertz. So if we can compare, this is the sound just from playing around with this channel strip a little bit and being like super aggressive with it. And then this is with the samples. EQ. Samples. It's really not that far off. So I think a lot of the time when you're pulling in samples and it gives you that like finished sound and you can't recreate that yourself, it probably means you're just not being aggressive enough. Like I'm literally adding 5 dB. I mean, not even that much on the top end yet. We'll play around with that in the context of the mix, depending on how much we want that click to cut through. If we go too much on that top end, it's going to start to sound like a metal kick where it's just like all beta. So not crazy amount, but like huge cut at 200 hertz and huge boost at 40 hertz. And that's just what it took to kind of get that sound. So let's now tweak that high end a little bit in the context of the mix.
Sending your friends to see you, making that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you, saying we'll push when you fail. Nobody can defend you for everything you did, for everything you did.
So I was just playing around there, trying different frequencies, trying bell versus shelf. And before we were all the way up at 16K, but in shelf mode. So that means when you boost even at 16K, the tail off of that shelf is going to end up affecting around like 6K. But I liked how it sounded with that bell instead, kind of narrowing it a little bit more into that like 6K range.
Sending your friends.
You can hear what we're boosting there now. And we're a little bit hot.
Sending your friends to see you, making that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. Sending your friends to see you, making that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you.
that'll do for now. Again, we'll come back and we'll compress that a lot more. We'll play around with 1176s and stuff. So make sure you watch part 3 for that. Now let's move on to the snare. And we're basically just going to do the same thing. Let's just use the 4KE again. And very similar. If we listen to the samples, it's probably just that they've been really aggressively EQ'd and compressed. So now we're just going to kind of recreate that. First thing we need here is a gate. And we could just try the gate on the SSL for now. That's fine for now. If we start boosting it loads and EQing it and compressing it loads, then we might want to use something that's a little bit more powerful. But again, it's convenient. It's just right there. Now we can start playing around with the tone. So solo our snare group again. I want to grab that really loud ring as well. So let's do something a little bit more modern. Just to grab that before we EQ it. Let's just turn off the EQ for now. Basically the fundamental there. So let's just and what I'm doing here is, instead of just cutting it with an EQ, I am using dynamic EQ mode in the Pro Q. That'll do for now. Again, if we wanted to, we could play around with soothe and stuff. But if that does it quickly and easily, that's great. I find it's easier to be more precise with something like Pro Q than soothe. Soothe I prefer for kind of like broader control. If something's sounding harsh or just has issues. Whereas if it's like a specific frequency ring, that's where I like to just do what I've always done, which is either EQ it out or find it and then dip it with like a dynamic EQ like we did there. Interesting. I started boosting the lows to add more body to the snare, but then it started triggering the gate when the kick came in, because we boosted the kick. By boosting the lows, we boosted the kick. So what we can do is we can actually switch this so that dynamics are first. And then if we boost the lows, it doesn't matter because we've already gated it, because the dynamics are first in the change. So the gate is functioning, it's getting rid of everything else, and then we're boosting after. I'm just kind of playing around at this point. It's just basically, again, like a smiley face. We're just cutting some of that mid-range at 1.3. Doesn't seem to, it's not responding well to like top end. Try bringing down that bottom snare, that's better. And again, we could add a little bit of compression so we can just get a feel for it. So it's definitely a less workable snare sound. The kick ended up sounding pretty good, but I'm not sure if this is going to work or not. Let's compare. So this is our trigger sample that we found. In the context, let's do drum kit. And then this is our EQ'd snare. It's not bad. Sample. It's just quite generic versus. We could at the very least use that sample as like a reference. What are we missing that a sample has? Maybe a bit more top end. Again, it just needs more oomph in general. More of a smiley face curve. We're also missing some of that attack because we've got so much ring. It's like more ring than attack almost. So let's try soothe as well. We can kind of tune in soothe, start down there. We don't want this all the way up here. It's going to be like something like this. Let's bypass everything else. Okay, and then this is Pro Q. We could just be more aggressive here. Soothe. Pro Q. I feel like we retain more transient and attack with soothe. We lose some of that with Pro Q. Yeah, I prefer soothe in this case. So now let's bring in. Sounds ridiculous in solo.
Sending your friends to see you, praying that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. Sending your friends to see you, praying that they'll protect you, hoping that they'll defend you. Sending your friends.
way. We need to go louder.
Sending your friends to see you. Laying that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you.
Let's just get rid of Pro Q.
Laying that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you. Saying we'll push when you fail. Sending your friends to see you. Sending your friends to see you. Laying that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend.
Yeah.
Sending your friends to see you. Laying that they'll
We went a bit
protect
too far.
Sending your friends to see you. Sending your friends to see you. Hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you. Saying we'll
There we go.
fail. Nobody can defend you. For everything you did. For everything you did. For everything you did. Sending your friends to see you. Laying the
I have no idea what these buttons do. Let's check the manual again. So we've got always read the manual. That's how you get to know your plugins. Better to have less plugins, read the manual, really understand them, than it is to have a bunch of plugins that you haven't really dived into. So we've got black, orange, brown. Black button in is 242 black, orange. Okay, but it doesn't really tell us what those actually mean. It's just going to be like slightly different curves. I'll dig into that more later. I haven't used 4KE a ton. It's newer. But for now, let's just use our ears.
Sending your friends to see you. Laying that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you.
So that really is what it needed. It was missing 600 hertz, so like more body. Yeah, interesting. So we ended up cutting 1.3K, but then boosting that back in at 600.
Sending your friends to see you. Laying that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you. Saying we'll push when you fail. Nobody can defend you. For everything you did. For everything you did. For everything you did. Sending your friends.
It's an interesting one. It almost sounds best when I boost and cut at similar frequencies, which can definitely be the case sometimes, especially when you're using like analog EQs, Pultec style EQs. Boosting and cutting around the same area can sometimes do some really interesting things, because we need to scoop some of those mids, but we also need to bring in some of that attack.
Sending your friends to see you. Laying that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls who hate you. Saying we'll push when you fail. Nobody can defend you. For everything you did. For everything you did. For
I don't know why that worked, but it kind of does. So I'm boosting, I've kind of like flipped them. I'm trying to figure out what I've done because I'm not entirely sure. I'm just like playing around and doing what sounds good. So now I'm going to reverse engineer it. So I've boosted a ton at 600 hertz, and then I'm actually using a lower band at a higher frequency. So I've like flipped these, and I'm cutting at 900 hertz. So we're kind of like simultaneously scooping the mids and then bringing back in some of that attack.
Sending your friends to see you.
So let's compare again. I might be losing perspective at this point. This is sample.
Sending your friends to see you.
This is our snare.
Sending your friends to see you.
It's getting there. It's not easy, but it's getting there.
Sending your friends to see you. Sending your friends to see you.
So that sounds good, but it also just sounds out of place. Like in this track, it's a really raw rock track. I like that we're using all the same drum kit, and it gives it that very like natural sound. We're not going for like super modern, heavily produced rock sound. We're going for more of that kind of like garage band, as the Americans would say. Yeah, this sample sounds good, and I preferred it to the other ones we had, but it also just, we're losing that realness.
Sending your friends to see you.
Versus our snare,
Sending your friends to see you.
it's taking some time, but I think it might be getting there, and if anything, it's now starting to sound better, but also way more natural because it's the actual snare.
Sending your friends to see you.
Now I just want to dial in that top end a bit more. If I boost too much, it makes me want to bring down the bottom snare. Then I could just bring up the bottom snare to get that brightness. Let's make that bottom snare just like brightness. So we're not really getting much body from that anyway. So let's go Pro Q. Okay, and then we're losing that in the gate is the only issue. But if we have them both on, then it will still come through the gate. And then we can start to add some saturation to that as well, just to give it a bit more vibe. Fill up our channel strip again. And we could do with a little bit more gain on that. So I'm just going to increase the gain coming out of here rather than add in another plugin. Let's try like bright. That's pretty bright. Then this just becomes our bright fader. Instead of using an EQ, we use a fader. And if we want more snare, more brightness, we can bring this up. So let's do that in the context of the mix.
Sending your friends to see you. Making that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Letting the girl
So anything more than that, it starts to sound just like too much snare. Like I can actually just hear that there's too much snare, as in the metallic. I'm not a drummer. The actual snare itself, the metal bit under the snare.
Sending your friends to see you.
So I don't want to go more than that. So if we want any more brightness from there, we can boost the gain.
Sending your friends to see you. Making that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you.
And again, we could use this sample as a reference if we want to reset our perspective on how much top end there should be.
Sending your friends to see you. Making that they'll protect you. Sending your friends to see you. Making that they'll protect you. Hoping that they.
Okay, so at this point, I'm aware of the fact that we've been tweaking the snare for a while. It's always bloody snares that you end up spending so long on. So we're gonna like leave that now, and we can always come back to it later. But I think we made good progress there. It's sounding a lot better than when we started. There's still lots more EQ to do, but let's kind of go back. We've done like the big boulders. We've done guitars, vocals, or at least lead vocals, kick and snare. So let's just have a listen here and do any other like tweaks that need to happen. And we'll go to a different section again, just for another perspective reset. Already, I'm not happy with that snare sound. I'm going to bring down the bottom snare. So again, that's always a good little trick. It's like go into a chorus. And there's some guitars there that are now grabbing my attention. These kind of pinches, I think it is. So this is where I'm going to start just moving a lot faster, because I'm just like, it's little background bits that I'm just like hearing. I'm noticing problems. This is grabbing my ear when it shouldn't. This is grabbing my ear. And then I'm just going to like, just really quickly, just like grab them, solve the problem, move on. Those pinches just sounded quite muddy. I think it's actually these channels where it sounds. Oh, maybe not. Maybe it's these ones. Vocal could just come up a bit. Kick can come down a bit. Again, we're still fine-tuning that balance. Always fine-tuning the balance. So I'm just gonna do this quickly, otherwise I'll forget. The volume there was just way too loud for this section here. So this is something we'll come back to when it gets to like fine tuning and finishing. and we'll spend a lot more time on this, but for now I'm just going to add a gain plugin to both of these, and then I can automate the gain plugin, which effectively frees the fader. Now if I want to turn that channel up or down, it's not locked in with automation. Instead we automate this. So that was just too loud, so I'm just going to pull that down a few dB. Same here. Or maybe it was just that was way too loud. Let's have Okay, so yeah, this actually, the pan shouldn't come over just yet. It should come over here. So that should still be center. And then this was just too loud. Oh, so we don't even need it. Just guitars in general sounding still a little bit muddy, still a little bit harsh. We can get rid of this note because we ended up cutting 2K quite a lot on the high guitar that was fighting that. Vocal also sounds a little bit harsh, but not just on the S's, just in general. So we could try like a little cut up here, which if you didn't notice what I just did there, basically just moved it around until I could hear that kind of like harshness. Nobody cares. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you. And then we can try and like counterbalance that. Because cutting up here, the risk is then you lose some of that kind of top end sheen. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you. So I can also add a shelf here. Saying we'll crush what you build. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you for everything you did. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you for everything you did. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you for everything you did. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you for everything you did. Harmonies, we can just kind of, we already know that it's probably going to be battling around that 2K area. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you for everything. And we already know it's going to be muddy. For everything. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you. And then we can probably for everything you did. So I'm pushing them. So a few things. Cleaning up some low end just because we don't need it. And it's the harmonies. If anything, I want them to sound a bit thinner. I'm not a huge fan of just putting a high pass filter on everything for the sake of it, but because I want them to be a little bit thinner anyway, then may as well. Cutting some highs to push them back in the mix a little bit. So the vocal is nice and bright and in our face. Anything where you cut the highs is going to have the effect of pushing it further away from the listener. So we're doing that. And then this here is just a really busy area. Again, we're in like kind of 2 to 3K. So I'm just going to cut them to free up some space there. And then same thing with mud. The whole mix is already, there's a lot going on in that area. So we're just kind of, these are all like obvious moves. To an extent, I wouldn't even need to necessarily like listen. These are moves that I already know. I know what I want to achieve. Thin them out a bit, push them back a bit, cut some mids, cut some of that upper mid range where they're battling the vocal for space. Obviously, I need to hear that to know how much to cut, but they're just moves that I know I want to make.
Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you. Saying we'll crush what you build. Nobody can defend you. For everything you did. For everything you did. For everything you did.
Maybe cut some of the low end on the guitars and start to think about the relationship there between the guitars and the bass. The other thing we could try is just soothe on the whole guitar bus instead of that kind of upper mid-range cut. So either way, I kind of like doing it this way. It's like do it manually. At least now you know kind of where the problem areas are. So 3.5, and then we can kind of move it over. I mean, that's pretty close to like the default soothe. But now we're using soothe a little bit more intentionally. I find with soothe, it's very easy to just load it up on everything and not really think about it. But if you do that too much, what this plugin does is obviously like cutting problem frequencies, cutting resonances, cutting harshness, and finding that automatically and in a way that's quite intelligent. But it's also just moving everything more towards like white noise. If you think of just like kind of flat, and it has its own profile that's moving things towards, but it's going to start to sound kind of boring. It's going to start to sound flat because we're just pushing anything back that's sticking out until we basically just have this smooth white noise effectively. And it's more complicated than that under the hood. They're not literally using white noise as the profile that they're optimizing towards, but you can't see any of that. And this is just, it's going to be optimizing towards something that's going to be relatively smooth. So if you just put it on everything, you're basically taking all the life and the character out of the mix. So I think it's important to be more intentional with it. And we have identified here this kind of harshness around 3.5. So we could bypass that, move it over to the soothe, listen, and so this is soothe, and this is Pro Q. Just a cut. I'm not even using the dynamic. I like soothe. We just need to be careful now that we're not cutting out too much and removing all the aggression and all the warmth from the guitars. might be a good point to do a quick reference.
Telling your friends to see you.
We're getting closer. So let's see if there's anything else that needs doing. If anything else small that we're not picking up right now in this kind of main EQ phase, we can come back to with like finishing touches, because there could just be like little things that are grabbing our attention. Overheads and the rest of the drum kit. That snare's starting to sound pretty good. I'm happy with that. Just little things like we could probably clean up the lows on the hi-hat. There's not a ton of low-end energy there anyway.
Telling your friends to see you. Laying that they'll protect you. Hoping that they'll defend you. But who protects me? Blaming the girls.
I'm not one to kind of go through every channel meticulously and like EQ everything. I'm just listening for problems. If there's not a problem, then I'll happily leave the channel with like no EQ on it. So let's go back, do one more quick listen going into a chorus, see if there's any other big problems to solve with EQ. If not, we'll call it a day there, and we can come back to any other little finishing touches in the final part. Not quite getting the high end out of the snare that I want, so we could try a clariphonic on that. And again, this is something we could always come back to. I don't want to spend too long on this. That'll do. We could always add more brightness on the overheads as well. Okay, I'm happy with that. This is about the time I'd normally be taking a break anyway, so we'll call it a day there. If you haven't got your cheat sheet binder yet, we're basically just following the process that's outlined in here, and we're going through a lot of the EQ stuff. So yeah, this breaks it all down into how to think about EQ, the 4 different ways to use EQ, the anatomy of an EQ if you're new to this and you don't know all the different filter types and that kind of stuff. And then we also have like frequency spectrum, cheat sheet, and tons of cool stuff. So as we're going through this mix, we're basically just walking through the different sections of this. If you want to grab a physical copy, you can go to our website, mastering.com. Or if you want to get a free digital version, I'll leave the coupon code in the description below, and that's just a thank you for being part of the YouTube community. We normally charge for the digital version. It's $19 on our website. We sell a lot that way, but you can grab a coupon code below this video and get it for free. So other than that, come back for part 3, where we're going to be doing compression. And then this is the first time we've gone through in this format. So part 4, I'm guessing, will probably be more kind of sweetening. Once we've got like dynamics pretty dialed in across the board, we'll go into like a sweetening phase. We still need to do reverb, delay, space. We need to do automation, finishing touches, that kind of stuff. So lots to come still. Hope you found this extremely useful. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed, especially if you want to see that part 3 come up. I'll actually link to part 3 here if it's out. You can just click to watch that. If it's not, YouTube will just throw something in there that I think you'll like. All right. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.